Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and we're bringing back another great Boomerocity friend by the name of Chris Odell. You may remember Miss Odell, and that's a key way of referring to her, about 3 years ago when I interviewed her for the first time because of her book that she had called Miss Odell. And Miss Odell is the name of a song written by George Harrison about Chris Odell. Chris was a good friend of George and of Patty Boyd and that whole circle there. Chris is very much a key part of Beatles lore. If you've watched anything about the Beatles, especially the rooftop concert, you'll know that she was one of the four people sitting on the bench as the Beatles were playing on the rooftop of their headquarters, Apple Records. On that bench was Yoko Ono, Ringo Starr's then wife, Maureen, our late good friend Ken Mansfield, who, as you know, I've interviewed several times on Boomerocity and miss him dearly. He was a great guy, died a couple years ago. And now Chris. Chris and Yoko are the two remaining people sitting on that bench on the famous Beatles rooftop concert. Well, they've made a documentary about Miss Odell, and it is phenomenal. You can rent it on any number of streaming services, and it's well worth the watch. I'm actually going to watch it again. It was so much fun to watch, and she talks to so many people like Peter Gordon and just a bunch of people. And hearing these people talk about being on the inside like she was, and Patty Boyd, Patty's in the movie, or the documentary. And so if you're into the history of rock and roll, and especially the Beatles, you will definitely want to watch Miss Odell. While you're watching it, would you please hit like and subscribe? Doesn't cost you anything, but it sure helps us out a lot. And please share this with your friends and ask them to do the same. So without any further ado, here is my second interview with my good friend, Chris Odell. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. Well, hello there, stranger.
Well, hello there. How are you? Good to see you again.
Yes, do you realize it's been 3 years since you and Angie Bowie and I had that lunch in Tucson?
No kidding.
3 years. It's gone way too quick. I haven't
Yeah,
been back to
really.
Arizona since.
You haven't? Well, you should come
No.
back. It's nice and hot.
Well, it was then too. I think it was already hitting 100 in Phoenix when I was there for that class reunion. So, but are you in Tucson today?
Oh, yes, I am here, waiting to see what the temperature. I think what's the temperature going to be today? It's like uh 98.
Oh, that's
That's
not bad.
bad. Yesterday was 103.
That's
Actually, I did 11. I don't know if I ever told you this. I interviewed 11 women back in the 80s who were married to or girlfriends or had been involved with rock stars. And I did it with Patty Boyd. And
mhm.
she did the photos, I did the conversations. They're more like, I did have questions, but they were so intimate that you couldn't really follow that. And she was one of them.
Mm.
So I got a lot of info at that time about her. And this was back in the 80s. We're making it into a documentary, by the way, all those interviews.
Oh, cool. Well, we're
Yeah,
going to have to talk when that one's about to come out too, because
yeah.
that's right in my wheelhouse there. I've been trying to get hold of Patty to interview. I interviewed her sister Jenny a year or so ago, and I loved what she had to say on your documentary. She's on my bucket list of people to talk to. So
Well, I talked to Jenny. I talked to Patty last week. I didn't get this from her, but Jenny told me on Friday that they're working on a documentary and she's been told not to do any interviews.
well, that makes sense.
That may be why it's more difficult for sure.
Yeah. Oh well,
Yeah.
maybe I can rank to interview her when the documentary comes out.
Well, we
But
are yeah, exactly. Then you definitely will. Then you
well,
definitely can.
I hope so. I'll treat her right. You know I will. I always do. So
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
well, speaking of documentaries, man, I loved how this one turned out of you. I mean, I've been waiting ever since you mentioned that one was going to be made, and that was a couple years ago. Well, I think it was right after our lunch we were just talking about that this was going to be done, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be great, and it is. I absolutely love it. How did tell me how it all came about and what all it took to get it done?
Well, I was at a Beetle Fest in New Jersey, and I was signing books, and some guy came up and introduced himself, had a production company called Maverick Productions, and said he'd like to talk to me sometimes about doing something. And I kind of thought, yeah, right. Okay, we know this one.
Yeah,
And then,
it's like you've never been approached like that before, right?
well, and I know enough to know that it doesn't always go anywhere. Yeah.
Right.
And but then Simon Weitzman, who was the director on it, came up to me at the end of the Beetle Fest and said he worked with Doug Schwab, who was Maverick Productions, and that they would like to talk to me about maybe doing something. And being that Simon's English, I just took it more seriously. You know, that English accent is more
Yep.
convincing. So we talked, and we and Simon did the whole thing. So I went, that was 2 years ago, I guess. And then I went to London in January 2 years ago, and we filmed it there in 10 days. It
Wow.
was crazy busy. I did the Peter Asher one in back in the US. But we had a heavy duty 2 weeks going everywhere and doing everything. And then during that time, while Simon was editing it with Alex, a younger guy from California, they would let me see things, and I would make I did have some input into the editing of it, I learned so much
Oh, I
during
bet.
that. I'd never done a documentary, and I just learned so much about it. I still don't know anything, but at least I know a lot more than I did before I got involved. So it took 2 years, and then once it was done, you let go of it. And then Maverick, or their branch of Liverpool West, actually put it out on that part of Maverick Productions. So
Hmm.
it's been really nice. They've done such a great job, getting it out there and getting it on Peacock and Prime and Tubi and Fandango. And they're working on more because there's the rest of the world too. So right now it's available in the States and in England, Ireland, and I think Scotland. I think it's UK, and they're
Hmm.
working on putting it in other places.
So
So
while working on this, were there any were there any big memories that were resurrected that you maybe kind of forgot about, or that was like, wow, I'd forgotten all about this, and then this documentary kind of pulled it up. But was there anything like that that took place?
I'm pretty sure because of other people being involved, like talking to Mal's kids and Mal Evans' kids, that brought up some memories of Mal that I kind of forgotten. And to Debbie, the receptionist at Apple, I kind of forgotten. I mean, hearing her daughter talking to the next generation was more exciting than almost all of it because they were kids or
Yeah,
they hadn't been born yet. And it gave them, it meant a lot to them to hear stories too.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember, and I meant to find this before we had our call, and I just ran out of time. And I might have told you this when we were at lunch that time. When I was interviewing Ken Mansfield on one of his books, this had been probably 7 years ago.
Mhm.
He, I'd interviewed him. I think it was for that novel that he wrote, Philco. I think it was Philco. But in there, he mentioned, pretty sure that, anyway, he mentioned, I'm pretty sure it was you, or it may have been Debbie, but I think it was you, where he mentioned that you were the hardest working person at Apple and that he, you know, the place kind of spun around you to a certain extent and that he relied on you a lot at times. And, that was back when I was transcribing the audio from the interviews
Mhm.
and I put it out there. And I'm probably going to edit this out because I don't want to have a repeat of this, but I get this note from him after I put it out there. He goes, Randy, I need you to do me a favor. So what's that? And he said, please clip out that part. He goes, I surely didn't say that. And I thought, I started doubting myself. And I thought, all right, I'm going to go back because I'm pretty meticulous when it comes to transcribing. So I went back, I found it, I snipped that little bit of audio out and I sent it to him. I wasn't going to argue with him. I was just going to say, Ken, you kind of
I
did
think
say
you
this.
did.
And he wrote back and he goes, could you do me he goes, you got me dead to rights. He goes, please do me a favor and remove that part. And I told him, I said, hey, blame it on me. I mean, he was so full of integrity that when I said, blame it on me, tell him I misquoted you or whatever. And I said, I'll pull that out. He goes, nope, I did it. I was the one that was wrong. And I mean, he could have easily taken me up on my offer, but the point being is that he thought highly of you and that he was, and I was so sad when he passed away. That was such a,
Oh, yeah, I loved him. And I'm so lucky that we kept in touch over all the years.
mhm,
He did actually write that somewhere because I read it. In one of his books, he actually wrote something like that.
yeah,
And he did comment to me that he didn't want to upset the other women who work there or the other guys, any of us who work there. That was part of what he was trying to do, is not to belittle anybody else's contributions. I
yeah,
think we had that conversation,
yeah.
but I'm sure he was wrong. I don't know if I was the hardest working person there. I just maybe made it look like I was.
Hey, perception's 90% of
Everything.
it, right? So that's right. So, well,
Yeah,
you and Yoko are the only ones left that were sitting on the bench at the rooftop concert,
I
right?
was just thinking that. There were four of us there, and Maureen and Ken are gone now.
Yeah.
So, Yoko, we're in a race here.
Do
Who
you
can
know
last the longest?
I've never talked to her, never met her, obviously never interviewed her, but when I first interviewed Bob Gruen,
Hmm.
did a not again, this is back when I was transcribing. A year or two later, I will occasionally go out and kind of Google my name and Boomerocity, see if what's out there that I'm not aware of. I found on her website, imaginepeace.com, they had the whole entire interview on there. My
Hmm.
name, the whole 9 yards. And I
Hmm.
thought, well, normally I would be a little upset where somebody posted the whole thing without my permission. But
Hmm.
hey, we're talking Yoko. I was cool with it.
Yeah,
That was my
there we go.
15 minutes of fame, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
But so, I
Yeah.
mean, do you get a lot do you get a lot of inquiry about your thoughts on the rooftop concert?
Um, I don't know that I actually, a lot of people ask me about it. When it comes up, it's more like, really? You were on the roof? For those who didn't know. And for those who did, it's usually, wow, you were so lucky.
Yeah.
But no one really ever asked about it. Well, the reality, the only thing I could ever say about the rooftop, well, not really. but it was cold. And I've said
Yeah.
that probably 1,000 times by now. It just bitterly cold. Wind. It was the wind.
Yeah.
And but actually it was quite an amazing what hour
Yeah.
that we were
Yeah.
up there and to be able to just sit there and I went to see the Beatles live at Dodger Stadium and I was so far up they were little stick men running around. That's why I
Little
called them little
ants.
stick men. Yeah, they were just like
Yeah.
meh, meh. And so sitting on the roof, and this only really came to me right this second, sitting on the roof was actually the first time I'd seen them doing that, and I could see them. I mean, I saw them every day, but they were actually playing, like doing a concert, and I was sitting
Mhm.
right there. So, yeah, it was pretty
Wow.
special.
I didn't realize, and if Ken mentioned it in his books, I had forgotten it. But watching the documentary, your documentary, I didn't realize it until you pointed it out that the crowd was mostly in the adjoining two buildings, watching from their roofs down into that space, and really there were very few people on the Apple roof aside from the lads, as they said. So, I mean, as you, Ken, Maureen, Yoko,
That was it,
Mal was
basically.
around there somewhere, wasn't he? And
Yeah, he was, well, no, actually, well, he was. And at the time when it first started, it was literally only us and the camera and the crew and the
mhm,
Beatles. And as it went on, eventually people like Peter Brown came out and a couple of, then I began to see a few of the other employees coming out, but we were told that we couldn't go up there.
yeah,
We got
yeah.
memos saying just the people that were working on it should be up there. And fortunately, the cameraman thought I should have been up there, help,
You weren't
helping
going to
me.
argue with him, huh?
Okay.
What was the biggest surprise for you that came out of this documentary?
Out of mine or
Yeah,
out of my
yours.
duck?
Yeah.
Um, Actually, I think that I really did, and I think a lot of this is timing, but I think I didn't realize how much certainly my age group and probably beneath to some degree really we see that it's nostalgia. It brings back all of the memories of what everybody was doing around that period of time. And I've had a lot of comments on that it was like, wow, I remember, how. And then the other thing I hear a lot about is that it was it filled in the spaces, things they didn't know about the different groups and everything. And I guess the third thing would be, you don't know how many people, including people I known, who said, I never realized you worked for that many bands. Because I wrote
Really?
down all the bands I could remember, and there were 21 of them that I
My
had
goodness.
at least interacted with somehow on tour with them. In Germany, I was the tour manager for the bands when they would come to Germany. So
Yeah.
21 bands, that's a lot of bands.
My goodness. Yeah. Well, you cover a lot of those in your book too, and I was was there anything when you were working on this that kind of tugged at your heart that was just kind of like a very maybe bittersweet or sad or while working on this documentary or looking at the finished product?
You know, I can't think of anything right offhand. I'm not saying there wasn't, Randy, but nothing comes to me. I just figured I had this assumption, and I may still be right. Only time will tell, that people were just gonna it was going to go on streaming and then it would just disappear. It'd be like one of those
No.
documentaries that you never even knew was there, really. So I was a little surprised to see, that it was actually getting people's attention and they were enjoying it. That was such a
Hmm.
gift.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Well,
really.
our mutual friend Nancy Andrews, she told me once over dinner that, or maybe it was on a phone call, one of the two. She said that there's, the draw that was beginning to see fewer people show up for like the Beetle Fest and such. And she goes, honestly, she goes, I think the demand may be going down. Now there could be, and the emotional strength from those of us still remaining, but there seemed to be maybe a little bit of a waning as our demographic begins to pass away or becoming incapacitated. Are you seeing? I mean, apparently it's not as bad as we might have thought because of the response you're getting on this documentary.
I think it's a lot easier to sit and look at your TV screen than it is to go to a Beetle Fest. For
Yeah.
some people, I'm doing the Chicago one. I'm going to be there in August.
Oh.
And, uh, it was kind of dwindling, I noticed. But I don't know, maybe there are four Beatle films coming out. There's Ringo and Paul are really active right now. I
Hmm.
think that I think there's going to be a new surge in interest, maybe younger people now.
Well,
Who
we had COVID kind of interrupt things too, so that,
Mhm.
and we lost people because of that, both artists and fans. But that's the reason why I do what I do, Chris, is because I want to keep the memory alive and let people know that, you know, our demographic and the people that entertained us as we're growing up, they're still relevant. You know, if they're
Right.
still alive, they're still relevant, and that's big. Have you heard any feedback from any of the people that you were discussing? I mean, you had several guests on the documentary, Peter and some of the others, but have you heard any feedback from any of those who weren't who didn't sit and talk with you in the documentary, but you talked about
Are you talking about Paul and Ringo?
Paul, Ringo, Mick, Keith, whoever, you know?
No, not really, but I don't expect that. I
Yeah.
mean, there is no reason in the world why they should sit down and watch a documentary about me. They're busy. If they do, bless their hearts. I'm very appreciative. But not really. I mean, I have had some musicians that I worked with. Bobby Whitlock is for one. In fact, I had a conversation with him on the phone day before yesterday, who
Wow.
watched it and was so grateful I kind of mentioned him in it. And yeah, but I can't think, I'm not really, it's not coming to me. I mean, I think that who knows what'll happen down the line. Maybe somebody will accidentally put it on. Mick,
Mick's about to be a newlywed again. He might be busy, you know. So
is he a newly, did he get married?
not yet, but he's engaged. I saw it a month or so ago in the press.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Good for him.
Yep,
And
that's right.
good for all of them. I mean, these people have watched so many, have done so much. They're so busy. They don't
Hmm.
need the nostalgia. They lived it.
That's
I
right.
had always hoped when my book came out that they would look at it, that they would read my book and go, "Oh, I didn't know you went through. I didn't know that about you." And actually, the only person who said it was Patty. Nobody else actually said, "Oh, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know about you that." So,
I loved how Patty came across on your documentary. I mean, you can tell she's got some. I bet she gives as good as she gets when it comes to an
oh,
argument or something,
no kidding. Yes.
huh?
And the way that she was, how we were on that is often how we are when we're talking. I think we're a little bit more outgoing with each other, but what was it when she found out? Oh, when we were talking about when I asked her, "How's it feel to have a song written about you?" And she's like, "Whoa, Chris." Like how could you ask such a stupid question? Not the first time I've seen that, heard that, or been there.
Well, hey, you have a couple songs yourself that been written about you, right? I mean,
I do
George,
have
yeah, George did, and Leon Russell did, yeah, in fact, Leon did too.
two,
Yeah,
did
yeah,
two.
yeah, way to go. Nobody's written one about me, at least not anything that could be repeatable, I'm sure. But
Well, I have to tell you that Don Nix, who is a Memphis musician, I don't know if you know of Don
I've
Nix.
heard the name, but I don't
Right.
know him.
Well, he called me up one day in California and said, "I wrote a song about you, Chris." And I said, "Really? What's it called?" And he said, "Miscellaneous." I'm like, "All right, bye."
Click. Well, you mentioned Bobby Whitlock. I got to tell you a cool story about him. I interviewed him last year sometime, and for this, when he was getting, he got an award for the
Oh yeah,
Memphis Walk of Fame, and
right.
so uh, Carol Kay, the publicist, not the bass player, arranged for me to interview him. And one thing I meant to mention to you is, since you and I had that lunch in Tucson, the end of 2023, very end, my dad started showing, he started acting peculiar. And long story short, Alzheimer's. So
Mm.
I'm his caregiver. I live next door to him. My office out of his basement, and so I'm here all the time. Well, I forgot to mention it to Bobby when the thing started, and um, right in the middle of the interview, my dad comes running down the stairs and wants to go to lunch or wants to do something. I forget what it was. And, I just talked very nicely to him. He went back upstairs and turned back to the camera and said, "I'm sorry." And I explained what it was. He goes, "Oh man, you should have had him just sit and talk with us. We would have had a good time." I left it on there. You could go and watch it, and it's still on there. And the reason why I wanted to do that is to show how cool Bobby was about it.
Oh,
That was
Bobby,
just so classy of him.
he is he is so wonderful. I love him. I love Coco, his wife, Coco Carmel. They're
Hmm.
both musicians, and yeah, he's one very special guy. That
Yes,
is,
he is. Yes, he is.
sorry,
What?
I'm turning off my phone.
No problem. No problem. We're just relaxed here. The thing I took from, I mean, like I said, I read your book. Obviously, I interviewed you about the book a couple years ago, but just going back and seeing the film, it reminded me of what all you had been involved. And I can imagine those, like you said a minute ago, those who know you, there's probably even more that they're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about this. I forgot about that." Was there in the midst of it? I just interviewed Sting's son for a documentary he did about Ron Delsener, a concert
Mm,
promoter in New York.
really?
Yeah.
Think so. That's so that's weird.
It's a great documentary. If
I
it's, I don't know where it's going to be, but I got a streamer of it, and it's a fascinating
Oh
documentary.
no, I remember Ron Delsner very well. I'm just so surprised that Sting's son, who's British, is actually would even know to do that. That's so amazing.
Well, he knew Ron growing up because he was in New York a lot, and um, but I was, when we were talking, that interview will post tomorrow, by the way. So if you want to watch it,
Okay,
it'll be on my channel tomorrow. But
just
he was talking about going through all the archives that Ron had, and so my question to you is: did you have a lot of keepsakes, memorabilia, a lot of archives that you had to dig through in preparation for this, or that the directors wanted to get involved with and all that? How much of that was there in the
well, I
preparation
did
of it?
have quite a lot, and we did use a lot of it during
Hmm.
that, and then I auctioned a lot of it.
What was the I mean, I'm not asking for dollar amounts, but response wise, was it a pretty good response on the auction?
Response was good. This morning I woke up and thought, gosh, I should have waited till the documentary came out because that's going to probably reach more people and wake more people up than when before the documentary. But the sad part is that that stuff is so precious to us in its own way because it's the memory.
Yeah.
Everything has that I kept had a memory attached. But the things that make the most money in auction are from stars, from, the famous musicians or
Yeah.
instruments. And I should have stolen a guitar here and there. I didn't.
Well, you knew, well, because of Patty, there's Eric Clapton, of course. I when I lived in Dallas, they have the Dallas International Guitar Festival there. And one year, one of the last times I went to it, they had on display this exhibit of all the guitars that Eric had auctioned off in support of his rehab facility in Antigua. And you could walk, they had them in the black, I mean, the clear cases, and you could walk right up to them. You just couldn't touch them, of course, but he had like Blackie and all that. And the prices that he fetched for, I mean, there's one or two that were over $1 million that somebody paid for it. And it was like,
Oh, yeah.
crap,
I'm telling you, it's crazy. I mean, but that also was a charitable contribution, which was
true.
not, and I'm not saying that that's why they did that, but it was for charity, which I think brings out even more interest and
I
maybe gets
agree.
a higher amount. But reality is that, oh my gosh, I mean, those instruments that those people had, and they're going to keep appearing for a while. They're
Oh, yeah.
going to
Yeah.
become astronomical. They're going to get
Oh,
so.
yeah. It's just you priced into the stratosphere. Was there anything that didn't make it into the documentary that you kind of wished had?
um no, can't think of anything. If there's anything, I'll put in the next one.
Oh, is there going to be a next one? Tell me.
Well, the next one is the interview ones that we're working on.
That's right. That's
Right.
right.
We're setting that all up and actually going to look for somewhat for investors and everything. So we're still very much at the beginning, but I've got a great team. Ken Womack, who is the writer, has written a
Hmm.
lot of stuff and he's involved, and Simon is going to be the director. And then we have another person. So it's going to be really, I think it's going to be a great documentary, but it will take
I,
a little while. Sorry, a little dry throat.
no problem. I think something like that would be phenomenal. In fact, I told Nancy 3 or 4 years ago, I said she ought to do some sort of online magazine where she has like a female celebrity interview and then like you know, a normal everyday non-celebrity woman and celebrate the baby boomer woman,
Hmm.
and using the celebrity to kind of draw the attention and then highlight somebody, in middle America or, on Main Street, USA somewhere, because I do think our demographic, again, still very relevant. I think women rock it. I'm not saying that to patronize you. I try to interview as many of the women in this space as I possibly can because, to the point you made about your documentary, I think there's a tremendous story that needs to continue to be told because you girls had to do a lot to prop these guys up a lot of times or to, fill in the gaps in their lives. And I, I think it needs to be told and repeated so it's not forgotten.
Well, that's exactly why I've carried around all the 52 hours of cassettes with me for how many years? 40 years? Because I knew early on, I recognized early on the women were so amazing and nobody knew a thing about them. they had to put
Hmm.
up with all of this, all the other women throwing themselves on their husbands or boyfriends. I mean, it was amazing. And I today have a better recognition, a better acceptance of the fact that what I did as a tour manager and was probably a lot more significant than I ever gave it credit for, that I was able to break through that and be the only woman working on tour for all of the years that I toured, basically. Slowly, other women would come on, but
Right.
very slowly. Um, so I think it's important. And I feel like that is what I'm supposed to be doing, is to
Yep.
keep really honoring these women.
Absolutely. I want to do my part to help with that too. What do you think the uh, well, let me rephrase it a different way. From your tour management portion of your career, and especially as it was highlighted in the film, what have people told you was the biggest surprise they got from that part of your life? Was
Um,
revelation wise or epiphany wise?
I think probably the number of bands that I'd worked for and wondering how a woman was able to do all of that, to be on tour with, like 100 and some guys and be able to deal with it. And that I think that was something. And I don't really think that I covered in the book or in the documentary the amount of work that really went into it, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, it was hard work and it was pretty much I couldn't do it in 2000 when I went out with Linda Ronstadt in 2004. I went, that's it. Can't do this anymore. Because even if, and she was easy, and nobody was doing drugs or anything, so it was different. But it's just hard work to be going
Yeah.
like that, to be moving, living in hotels, all of that. But when I was in my 20s and early and my 30s, that was easy. Like, you don't get to sleep tonight. Okay, big deal. The show must go on.
That's what pills are for, right? So,
Right. That's what cocaine was for heaven's sake.
oh Lord. I've been watching the Narco series, and I mean, seeing these guys just like take it all up in their noses, I'm just looking at it and going, "Oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack just watching that." It's just
Hello, I don't know how we lived. I don't know how we all did it past that. Oh my God.
you mentioned Linda Ronstadt. Now, she lives in your neck of the woods still, doesn't she, or
Well,
is she in
she stopped.
California?
No, she's in San Francisco now. She's in California.
Oh, I didn't
She
realize it was
lives
San
here,
Francisco.
or she is from here,
Right.
and she back here and lived here for quite a while. But she, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be able to say why she went back. Well, I don't think she liked the politics here
Mm.
too much, which is interesting because this is a right up her alley. This town is pretty liberal, but we talk. I talk to her probably, hopefully once a month at least, and she loves Tucson. She's like me. We love the mountains. We love the cactus. We're desert
Yep.
girls.
Yep. Yep. I miss it. I mean, Phoenix has changed dramatically since I lived there, and I kind of left there feeling kind of sad, but I still love Arizona. I love the desert. I love the mountains there, the diversity of it all, and it still owns a big chunk of my heart, you know. So because so much of my life, this is formative years took place there, and I had family there in Tucson, still do, and an aunt and uncle who passed away there and all that. So Tucson's a big deal to me, very big deal.
Yeah, I think about leaving and I think, I don't know if I could leave the mountains.
Yeah. Hey, we've
They
got mountains here.
Oh yeah, you do. Actually, you do have a lot of mountains.
That's right. But we have trees on ours, you don't. So,
Oh no, we don't do trees.
Some people think they're overrated, so but
Actually, I'm looking out the window at a bunch of Palo Verdes right now, and
oh
this,
wow.
so those are
Yep.
trees. They count.
They do count. That is true. It's all a matter of how you want to look at it. So
Right.
with this, is there any talk of reissuing your book? And maybe if you do, any kind of updates to it?
No, really. I mean, my book is still there. You can still buy it on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I try to have them with me whenever I do anything. So
Mm-hmm.
those who have not read it can read it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but to me it's still there. It's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
out there. I was told when it first came out in '09 that it was a book because it got put out at Christmas time. I don't know what was wrong with me to allow that to happen. I don't know that I had any choice, but you do not want to get caught up in the Christmas time book selling, certainly not back then. I was up against Michael Jackson. Um,
Yeah.
I can't even think how many people. So it felt like it got lost. That was the impression I had, is that this book has gotten lost. But Philip Norman, the writer, told me, he said, no,
Mm-hmm.
Chris, it's got legs.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I heard that. So what is it? How many years later? It's still available, which is pretty amazing, and not for $75 or 120, a very measly 20.
You
And
wish
I'm
it
not
was.
selling it. That's on Amazon.
Well, talk about the cost of books. I remember, I don't think it's still there, but I think I saw it on eBay somewhere, or maybe it was Amazon, as a used copy. Chuck Negron's book, Three Dog Nightmare. And I've got a first edition of that. And somebody had it on the market for 600 bucks. And I was like,
Yep.
holy crap. And I asked him when I interviewed him, I told him that. I said, what's with that? And he goes, I guess I'm worth it. And I thought, so it might be. I would love to sell my copy if I had, and it wasn't even autographed. It was just the book, you know. But if somebody offered me 600 bucks, I'd take it. I'd take 600 bucks for it. But I still have your two books you signed for me. They're still sitting right over here on my shelf. And I was thinking I might give one as a gift, but I haven't found anybody that I would want to let go of it, the second one to. You personalized one to me, and then the other was, just sign. I don't sell that kind of stuff, but I would be, if somebody I talk to says, hey, I really, big Beatles fan, love Chris O'Dell and all that, that's who I'll give that second
And
copy
then
to.
you'll know, right? You'll know exactly that it's the right person.
Exactly, exactly. And by the way, before I forget, when I gave you Angie Bowie's book, I had had it with me without the cover because I didn't want the covers to get tore up in my traveling. Same way with your books. I still have that cover, so next time I see you, I'll give you the cover so
Oh,
you can have
thank you.
it. I don't like having books without covers. I'm just kind of weird
No,
like
they
that.
need a
But
cover. I
yeah,
agree.
so when are you going to come out this way?
I don't know, but boy, would I like to. I
You
need
need
some
to.
humidity.
Well, we'll have that, I guarantee you. And
I
if you come
know.
out, let me know far enough ahead of time so I can make arrangements. And you and me and Nancy and anybody else we can get along, we'll get together and when Nancy and I get together, we have a fun gossip fest. We're kind of like
Oh,
two
I'm
ladies gossiping.
sure. I know Nancy.
Uh, she, I was talking to the author, Marshall Terrell. He and I have become very good friends.
Mhm.
And he's been working with Nancy on stuff and on the book she's working on now. And we got to talking. He goes, hey, let me add her on. And so he adds her on. We had a three-way conversation for like an hour and a half. And we had the best time talking about everything. And she was asking me what's going on in my work and the interviews, and of course, Marshall's books and all that. And oh gosh, we had a blast. So the three of
Yeah.
us could get together and we'll have a blast again. So
Oh gosh. Well, I don't know. Nancy's a good conversationalist.
she is.
She
She
can
is.
talk. Conversationist or conversationalist? I don't know.
I
I
think
haven't,
it's conversationalist. I
I do
think
too.
that's
Oh,
what
well,
I would say. So,
okay, good. Then I'm probably right. We're right.
well,
Let's
or
say
we're
we're right.
both wrong, and we have comfort in that company there. So,
Yeah. Anyway, she loves to, I mean, she's fun. She's a hoot. Makes you laugh.
oh my gosh.
She keeps the conversation going, no doubt, no
I,
doubt.
I remember I was at her place for dinner one night, and we sat after we got all done. It's when she had both of her dogs before the one dog passed, and Lizzie, I think it was. And we're sitting out in the backyard of the house she was in at the time. Yeah, have you talked to her lately?
Probably like in the last month, I did talk to
Okay,
her. I can't remember how long. Time is just flying by right now. So,
I hear you.
but we did have a conversation within the last month.
Well,
Yeah,
good, good. So you're up to speed on everything with her there. So,
right. Exactly. Yeah. She called me at 5 in the morning. Anybody
that's
else calls me at 5 in the morning, they go right to voicemail. I saw it was her, so I jumped on it.
boy, that's
And she
early
had
even for her because that would be well,
eight,
there's yeah.
3 hours, eight.
No, no, she's central. I mean, yeah, she's central time, so she'd be 7 her time. I'm 8 o'clock
Okay,
here
you're
because I'm
eight.
in Eastern. Yeah, yeah. So
I thought you were in Tennessee.
I am. I'm in the Eastern. We have 2 time zones.
Oh, you do? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so
I
it's
lived
split.
there.
Yeah, the time zone changes halfway between Knoxville and Nashville, thereabouts. So I'm
Okay.
I'm up in the Smokies, and to quote your friends in the Beatles, the Smoky Mountains way down south. That's where I live, and so I'm a couple miles from Dollywood is where
Oh,
I'm at.
okay. I know that area
Yeah,
vaguely. Let me put it
yeah.
that way.
It's changed a lot. It's growing. It's all sorts of stuff happening, but wait, I
Yeah.
know you got a lot to do, but one final question for you. Aside from this documentary you're working on with Patty, what else is on your radar for the rest of this year and say next year?
I want to retire. I was thinking
No,
that,
you
yes.
no, you don't. You don't want to.
I'm not going to for a while. I thought that's a fact. I'm kind of getting ideas for some different things. I may go back and do I was doing chit chats on YouTube with ladies, and I
Hmm.
kind of stopped that because I ran out of ladies I knew. And well, not quite actually. Now I've got a few more back. Um, so I'm thinking about doing that, and I'm thinking about, and then working on this other documentary. And, I'm waiting to see what this documentary presents.
Hmm. Well, I think
Something,
we're all going to be amazed at what it presents. And one woman I forgot to mention. I'm not sitting here trying to name drop. I'm just trying to remember people we both have talked to or and I've interviewed. And one of those was May Pang. I got to talk to her since I saw you last, and I was surprised I got the interview. I really was. It was when her documentary was coming out, and
oh yeah.
I had a great chat with her, and it was fun. I she was delightful to talk to as well.
Yeah.
So
She's a good friend. I love her. I love May. We don't get to talk enough because we're both so busy, but one day we'll find time soon, I hope. It's getting less with
well,
her
what you need to
older.
do, this is how you can do it. I'm sure you've done something similar. Just have a round robin session. You put a half circle of chairs on a stage, charge whatever you can get away with charging for everybody coming, and you girls just let it rip and just start talking and let
Is
people
def
listen in. I think it would sell out multiple times.
Well, I hope you are right. May and I've actually talked about that, and I think it'd be fun. I would love to do that.
I would love
Just
to watch it. It
yeah,
would be so
I
much
would love
fun.
to do that. And I've reconnected with a couple ladies. Gretchen Parsons Carpenter. Do you know Gretchen? She was married to
That name
Graham.
sounds familiar. Oh, to
She was
Graham.
married to
Okay.
Graham
Yeah.
Parsons. but she was his widow. And then she married Bobby Carpenter from the Nitty Gritty Dirt
Uh-huh.
Band. They're still
Uh-huh.
together forever. And I've kind of reconnected with her. And do you remember a singer called Claudia Lanier?
Yeah, yeah.
She was a background singer on almost everything during that. The Stones used her. I mean, she was on everything. And she and I just reconnected. So it's there's some more women now to add to all of this.
Bonnie Bramlett. I don't know what's happened with her. I interviewed her 10, 11 years ago, somewhere there. Story about her. When I was living in Phoenix, I was newly married and I was involved in contemporary Christian music. And Joe English had left Wings and went into Christian music, and he was friends with Bonnie. And
Mm.
when he released his first Christian record, went out on the road, I put on his first public concert at the church I went to there in Glendale, and she opened for him. And then fast forward a bunch of years later, like I said, probably 9 or 10 years ago, thereabouts, I got to interview her by phone. I didn't have her on video. But I think she seems like I heard from somebody that she moved back to St. Louis because I know
Oh,
she was
really?
working for a songwriting house in Nashville. But
That's
I
the last I heard.
that but I had heard, and I couldn't confirm it, but I think she went back to or moved up to St. Louis. And I don't, I mean, I hope she's doing well. I hope she's, healthy and all that. But gosh, she would be talking about somebody that, was has a story. Oh my
Yeah, oh,
gosh.
she definitely does. Well, interestingly enough, Bobby Whitlock's wife, Coco, was Delaney's wife after
I
Bonnie.
did I didn't know that. Now that they weren't married when Delaney died.
Well, I can't tell you that. I don't know enough about, I don't really talk to her because she's with Bobby. I thought maybe I shouldn't bring up the last dude,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't really know, but she was married to him.
Wow.
And
Well, his daughter, Delaney's daughter, Michelle, she was leading the charge for a long time, and I think it's cooled off now of trying to get Delaney and Bonnie into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Which,
mm,
I mean, good Lord,
well,
why
they
aren't they?
should be. Well, that is such a good question because look how many people should be in there that aren't, and how many people are getting in there that shouldn't be.
Oh,
So
that gets me
yeah,
so upset.
I'm not putting down the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall
I
of Fame.
am.
Okay, I am.
Yeah. I mean, how can you have ABBA in there and not Delaney and Bonnie? Or, these rap bands and such. And people say, well, their roots, their roots are the same. Well, but they have their own their own Hall of Fame. Let them get inducted into there. Leave rock and roll to just being rock and roll blues. Maybe some country. I'm okay with some country going in there, depending on what the tie-in is. But there's so many. I mean, Rick Derringer died today. He
I did read that.
he needs to be. I mean, he should have been in there all along, and the previous CEO agreed, Terry Stewart, but the criteria was such that he barely didn't meet the criteria. But gosh, with Hang On Sloopy and his own solo work and all the producing he's done, if they put him in there as an honorary, I'm going to be really hacked.
You know what? We should probably have our own Hall of Fame.
I'm
And
for it. We'll call it the Boomerocity Hall of Fame. There we go.
numerosity.
Yeah, my Hall of Fame. So
Yeah, it wouldn't, I mean, it just doesn't match my idea of who should be in the Hall of Fame. I'll put it that way simply. I mean,
yeah,
some, yes, obviously, but
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. I mean,
unless
I
they
just
put, if they honor me, then I'm taking all of this back and say they are the most, and
of course. Of course.
yes.
But well gosh,
Well, I
Chris, this is
let me tell you one last thing. I'm looking at
sure.
your background, and there's a lot of me.
Yeah.
I just want to say this, those sunglasses, I mean, this is a drawing, but it's off of a actual photograph. Those sunglasses, I had them made. They were Ray-Bans, and I went down to the place and I was in LA, so they'll do anything. They would do anything. And I said, I want you to do mirrored stars. And they did, and they were amazing. I wore them on the CSNY tour, and we were playing an arena, and I went underneath the bleachers for something and walked right into a pole. And I thought, maybe these are too dark. They
You
were
still
so
have them?
cool. Oh no, I gave them to Ringo. And I even have a photo of him wearing them.
Oh my gosh.
Well, who deserves the more? Who deserved the more than him?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure a mutual friend might beg to differ with you on that. But we won't go there, will we?
We won't go there. No. So I'm sure he doesn't still have them, but I think they were pretty cool, and I was real happy when they used them in the.
Did I tell you my Ringo story? I actually met him. This is before I knew you and Nancy, of course, but I was backstage in well, I had just interviewed Steve Lukather for the first time. And he's Ringo's guitarist in the All-Star Band, and he's in Toto and all that. And I've interviewed Luke now probably 7 times. So he invites me to the show in Greenville, South Carolina, and my cousin and I go. And so I'm backstage talking with Luke, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Well, do you want to meet the boss?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I mean, if that's possible." I mean, Todd Rundgren's standing around. I forget who else was there. So we go down these hallways and into this back room, and pretty soon Luke comes walking in with Ringo, and Ringo's holding this cup of tea, right? And walking. I got a picture. It's on my Facebook page in one of the photo albums. But he walks in, and I'd already been coached by Ringo's photographer, Rob Shanahan, and because I said, "Hey, Rob, I'm going to be going this. Coach me. I don't want to, you know, be an idiot when I'm there." He goes, "Don't bring anything to get autographed, and don't talk unless you're spoken to." I mean, it wasn't as far as, don't look him in the eye type thing. It didn't go that far. But so
No, this is
we're back in
the
this room.
royal, this is royal protocol here.
That's
You know,
right. That's right. So I'm off to the side. Luke and Ringo walk in. Ringo's got his tea. And he just looks over at me. It's kind of like, "And who are you?" But he didn't say that. He just kind of gave me that look, and you could read the body language. And I just kind of nodded, and he just kind of nodded. And that was the extent of it. Some kid was in there, so they got their pictures taken together, and the
yeah.
peace and love thing and all that. But that's my Ringo story. Didn't talk to him. We just nodded. So
Well, you are nodding friends now.
that's right. Well,
Yeah,
we're from Nottingham, so
that's hysterical.
well, Chris, this
Yeah,
was a lot of fun. I always enjoy speaking with you, and I will let you know when this posts. I'll go through the publicist, so she's in the loop on this, and but so much fun. And if you have anything that ever comes up, especially this other documentary you're working on, I'd love to do on that one is have you and Patty together. That would be a lot of fun. If she'll do it, I would be honored that for both of you to gang up on me while I'm questioning. So
well, that would happen.
yeah, I know it would. I better be on my best game too if I'm going to
No
talk to
kidding.
her. So
Thank you,
because
Randy.
she might tear me to shreds. I don't know. So
Oh, she's a sweetie pie. She does it
so
jokingly.
yeah, I know, and I can take it. So,
Yeah,
but my
you can.
friend, I'm here for you if you need me. Please let me know if I can ever be of help and service. And I'm serious. If you make it to Nashville, give me plenty of heads up, and maybe you and Nancy and I can get together for dinner or something.
Sounds perfect. Thank you. Thank you,
All right, my
Randy,
friend.
so much.
All right, my pleasure. Stay safe and healthy.
Oh, I am working on that.
I know you are, and doing a good job too.
Thank you.
All right, take
Okay.
care.
Bye.
This has been another fun-filled episode of Boomerocity with your host and producer, Randy Patterson. The theme song is Roll the Dice and is recorded and used by permission from Quinton Hope. Quinton is spelled Quinten, and Hope is Hope. And you can find out more about Quinton at quintonhope.com. Post-production is done by Cardinal Sins Productions. The Boomerocity name, logo, and content is copyright protected. Segments may only be used with written permission by Boomerocity and/or its assignees. Inquiries should be directed to input@boomerocity.com. Copyright 2025.